All right, well, good day, everyone, and welcome back to another weekly edition of Stock Market Mutterings. This is for the week ending on the 15th of July, where I'll do my best to try to find you some good setups. I hope you had a real good week trading. If you didn't, if you're struggling and you need help, somewhere on this screen, if it's not on the screen, it'll be down in the description box, is a link to our live trade room. Click on it. You can start trading with us live right away. Now, we talked a lot of good setups last week. We had some really nice movers. One was Facebook. If you watched last week's market mutterings, a nice breakout over 202 running to 207, and ROKU. These were our two top trades for the week, and they both look pretty good. Was hoping to get a little bit more out of this ROKU, but it's still in place. So a lot of good stuff has been coming through these market mutterings. So we're going to try to see what we can come up here with this week, because we have some nice setups here as well. And the first thing I'll do, as I do every week, is I'm going to take a snapshot here of the market. So let me pull up the SPY here for everyone. And we're just sitting right here, and I think we're going to see a pretty big move, at least early on in the week. We've been talking about this 280 for quite some time. There for a while it was a battle between the 200 moving average and this 280. We moved up into the 280s at the very beginning of June, selling off down into the 50 moving average. And over the last week here, it's been relatively strong. You got a little chink in the armor there right around the tariff news. I think, don't quote me here, but I think it was Wednesday, Thursday. I can't remember. But anyway, pulls right back up and just retraces it the very next day. And that's the kind of market we've gotten used to. If you go back even as far as Brexit, selling off, retracing that move, the election, retracing that move, then the very next day, this thing coming right back. And now you're sitting right here at this 280. And why this is so important is you're going all the way back to February and March, where you really struggled with that. So getting above that's going to start getting the talk of reaching this 287.20 area. So there's a very good chance that if we start the week strong, you can't rule out 287.20. Now, when we look at trades, one of the better trade setups here is something like the Dow itself. Now, it's been the laggard. When it came out with the tariff news, it's hit some of these indexes a little bit differently. For example, the Qs, the tech sector, has just kind of shrugged it off like it wasn't there. And the SPY has done close to the same, but not as strong as the overall techs. Now, the Dow itself, I'm going to use DDM here. This is just an ETF. For those that would trade this outright, if you can, I would use YM, which is the futures. I like it better, but not everybody is trading futures and so on. So you can use either one of them. I'm just going to talk about the Dow itself as a trade. It's a little off of its peak resistances when we're looking back to March. And that right there sits early in June, when everything else, all the market indexes there, indices, started to roll over at the beginning of June. And I said, the Qs have gone through that level. The SPY is now at that level. The laggard here, obviously, is the Dow itself. I think if we continue to stay strong, you're going to see this move up to 25,411 sometime during the course of the week. I mean, you got a few hundred points there. Again, I'm most likely going to take this trade. Just want to see how Monday works out. But that's the target. I think you're going to see a 25,400 run on this. Now, you can play this, like I said, if you don't have futures, you can use DDM if you want. You can see it's the same chart. It's just an ETF here for some of you. It's also a little less, I guess I'll use volatile, a little less leverage in this. Or you can also use UDOW, which I use sometimes if you want to take some of the leverage out. UDOW, I'll spell UDOM, UDOW. There you go. So you can see the same kind of charts. Anyway, bottom line is I think there's a trade that's not always on my list. But I think you got a trade here in the Dow where you're going to see it try to get back up to June's high. A couple of ways you can play it if you don't have a futures account, like I said, UDOW, DDM. So watch that one here. Now let's move on to a couple of different stocks here. The first one I want to look at here is the BIDU. Let me take a look at the BIDU here. Now this thing looks like here, you've obviously got a nice little double top. You can see where I got the alert here set, 273.48 down there at the bottom chart. You're looking at the daily. I mean, this thing's got a nice little V-shaped rally going on here. Now, if you've listened to any of these videos in the past, I'm a little sketchy when it comes to V-shaped rallies. They're not one of my favorite types of breakout trades. I prefer when things get up towards their highs that they kind of tap on it a few times or run a little tighter area of consolidation or in a tighter channel, then break out. But you don't always get that. Sometimes when they just bust through these V's, they just come back with a vengeance. But pay attention to this. If we're strong at the beginning of the week, which I think we are going to be, then take a look at this 270-350 here. If you start moving through that, you have absolutely no resistance in the chart till above 280. It's a pretty big mover. It's not a stock I think it's for everyone, because you'll get $6-7 moves out of this every day. You can take this thing, you know, you had a nice looking breakout early on Friday, and then you go from 271 straight up to 274 and then down to 266. You got to be a little bit, you know, careful with this one. And when I say careful, I mean pick your spots with it. Make sure you got a pretty good risk in this trade, but just pay attention to that 270-350, because I think if you do go through that, you're going to see a run to 280. The question will be, will you be able to get in at a good risk to reward area? Also, another stock here that's trying to do its very best to come back to what it once is also NVDA. Now NVDA just kind of sold off there and just stayed down. BA looks like this too as well. Just kind of hunkered down in there around the 238s and built a pretty solid base there, and then started to break out. Now it's holding the breakout. So you got a pretty good move that went from 243 up to 252. And for the last 4 days, pretty much the entire week, it just kind of went sideways. This is what I'm talking about. Rather than V-shaped rallies, is get these tighter areas of consolidation up here. And you can see that it's just right on the 10 moving average. This one is 253.52. We start moving through that area, then it'll confirm this little flag breakout, and you should be able to, this thing should trade to the next level, which is 260 to 261. That would be the trade I'd be looking at. And maybe if it's, you know, super bullish out there, then you might see a 268. But first things first, I would look for that trade going from 253 up to 260 sometime during the week. Again, both this one and BIDU have decent setups, but they've yet to confirm. So anything can happen in the trading. So you want to make sure that you wait for these things to confirm and to set up pretty good. That's in NVIDIA. Another one that might be of interest, definitely not a breakout here, is DEC. This thing has been on, it's a lot of red days in a row here on DEC. It's gone from 121 to 110 bucks. So it sold off about $12 here over the last couple of weeks, and it's been consistent. It's just been going down and down and down, but slowly. And now you're sitting here at the 50 moving average on a daily chart. Now this has been a big runner since May. This thing had a nice run from 92 up to 120. So the sell-off is somewhat justified, but rather than a panic sell-off or a sharp sell-off with something sometimes you might see like in a Tesla, you've got just a light volume, you know, slow drift right into the 50 moving average. It needs a little bit of work. I wouldn't just say just because it's down this far that it's worthy to be bought. You know, that's not how this deal works. But if you can get some sort of level taken out, because what you've seen here is there's been a couple of green days, but none of them have been able to retrace any of the previous selling. So you got this green day, but it wasn't able to get over the previous. You got this green day, wasn't able to get over the previous red. This green day wasn't able to get over the previous red. You can see what I'm talking about. A couple here, and then so on. I think you need to get up around 113s and hold, see a little more volume come into this name, and then you're probably due for a nice bounce. Maybe this thing can work its way back to 120, but with a nice little slow drift like this, holding it an important moving average from a former runner, I'd look for a confirmation day or an inside day where this thing gets a really solid green and is able to hold that. Then you could see this DEC turn around. Something, let's call it a wild card play, something to keep there on the list. I'm also going to do this GameStop here, GME. This one's doing the same thing. This is kind of like, since I mentioned, if some of you are new out there, didn't follow what I was talking about, I can be confusing, obviously. This is kind of what I was talking about with DEC. You got a move and a nice fade into the moving average, then you get a nice green day that holds, and you get a nice pop. Anyway, different chart setup here now. You're close to a triple top that's working around this $15.80 to $16 area. That's also where the 200-day, the 200 SMA on the daily chart is as well. I think if you get through this triple top, that's also resistance for quite some time throughout the month of March. You can see back here, it had a lot of issues there. You might get a nice little 18 run. I mean, there's room for this thing to start moving its way towards 18. Nice little chart. It's been down at the bottom for a while. It's held on to that. It's come off of the bottom, and now it's holding the majority of its gains. So look for this one here. I'd say 15.5 to 16 early on in the week. for a trade up to, possibly 18. So we'll look at that area on this one. So that's where I'm going to leave it here. That's enough to get Monday started. And again, anything can change at any minute. Some of these may confirm, some may not. But a brief rundown here. I think the best look is the actual Dow itself in some sort of an instrument there to see that thing work its way back to early June highs. Then we're looking at BIDU, NVDA, DEC, and GameStop. All of these to confirm early Monday. I think some of them might need a little bit of help with the market, but you're getting there where I think we're going to see at least the very early part of the week is some strength, and if there is some weakness, it'll probably follow a little bit later, but anything can happen at any time, and my crystal ball is just as good as yours, so who knows? Who knows? Anyway, if you need some help trading, you know where to find me. Hope this week's stock market mutterings can find you some quality ideas. If you have trading ideas out there of your own and you need some help, you want some second or third eyes on it, you want some opinions, send me an email, support@thelincolnlist.com. Until next week, trade well, take care. I'll talk to you then.